Testing 1 2 3. Yeah. Hi, good evening, guys. This is Kevin here. Um, so this is my first video. I don't really have a script. I don't really know how to do this. So please forgive if I end up ranting. There'll probably be some degree of ranting in this video, right? This purpose of this video is to serve as an outlet for me to basically just kind of gush about Neverness to Everness, so there will probably be some degree of ranting, so uh, please excuse me for that, I guess. So in the meantime, here's some Eroi gameplay. I managed to get her up to Awakening 3 and Tier 1. Yeah, she's been really fun. It's probably my favorite character in Neverness to Everness thus far. Right, so I think before we really talk about why I enjoy Neverness to Everness, my history of playing certain games might help to explain why I enjoy Neverness to Everness. Right, so I've been playing Genshin since there are like 3 or 4 anime gacha games that I've played to a pretty extensively, right? For Genshin Impact, I played it between launch week until maybe Neverness patch in Notcry, or was it Columbina? I can't really remember. I think it was Columbina, and that's where I stopped. I've played Wuthering Waves since launch, and I stopped around the patch after Amieth, right? I've also played Zenith Zone 0 on and off basis, and I've played Arknight's Enfield since launch as well, but now on and off basis. Neverness to Everness is kind of my main anime game to go to right now. That's how much I enjoy it. Now, why am I bringing these other games up? It's because to explain why I really like Neverness to Everness and my preferences, right? We kind of have to look at the games that I've played previously that have shaped those preferences and why I think Neverness to Everness is really freaking good. Like, yeah. So I guess let's start with Genshin, right? To kind of summarize, I guess Genshin is really good at open world exploration gameplay, right? It's the way you see something in the distance and you walk towards it and you complete the puzzle, or you fight the monsters for the chests and whatnot, right? And then you see something off in the distance again, and you would go there, right? It's a very organic, very seamless method of exploration that hasn't really quite been replicated in other anime games. I really enjoy that type of this type of moment-to-moment exploration gameplay in an open world. I really enjoy it, right? And you would also come across like all sorts of secrets and side quests and hidden exploration objectives in the process of moving in between different activities and puzzles in the open world, right? So that's one of the strengths of Genshin. Another strength of Genshin is character continuity. Genshin goes out of their way to not just sell characters in terms of their physical appearance and design and kit and whatever. It's also the background. It's their stories. There is a continuous effort on Hoyo versus part to introduce characters to you, to flesh out their personalities, their backstories, their motivations and weaknesses, and so on and so forth, right? Right, and there is also a concerted effort to ensure that these characters basically will come back in the future from time to time, right? So that they're not forgotten, basically. Character continuity is another aspect of Genshin that is one of Genshin's strengths, like really well done, right? And the third aspect of Genshin, there's another thing about Genshin that I feel like it did well. This one was implemented only recently, and it ties in with Genshin's strength of character continuity, which is basically the Traveler's Tales. This is the new system where you basically can come across playable characters in the open world. You know, just up to their own shenanigans in the open world, just doing their own thing. And I really like that. I really like that because it further strengthens character continuity. It makes the world feel lived in, and it strengthens the feeling, the immersion that playable characters are actually part of the open world. Like, I really enjoy this particular mechanic in anime games like this, right? I've always wanted Genshin to have Traveler's Tales since like year 1 or year 0. Um, yeah, it's kind of crazy that they took so long to implement Traveler's Tales, but yeah, really enjoy these types of mechanics in these types of anime games, right? I just want to have the ability to come across playable characters doing their own thing, and Genshin has that, right? So these are the few things that Genshin does really well. Um, so, but you know, not Genshin has its own issues as well, right? For example, character gameplay and combat in Genshin is quite rudimentary compared to Wuthering Waves, right? It's kind of basic. You basically swap into a character via the burst. You press E and you would just spam normal attack or heavy attack, I guess, for DPS characters, right? For support characters, it gets even simpler. You swap in through their burst, you use their elemental skill, and that would be it. Like, you would swap them out because having them stay on field further would be a DPS loss, right? Not to mention, like, there's absolutely like no reason to keep them on the field, basically speaking, right? And another thing, right, the reaction system in Genshin, very cool idea, but very poor execution. The way it works currently in Genshin means that you have almost no way of controlling who's the reaction trigger and who's the reaction enabler, which means you don't really know whose EM stat, which character's EM stat the reaction is scaling off of. It makes it really hard to build reactions, to build for reactions in Genshin, despite the fact that reactions are such a huge part of Genshin's combat and gameplay in general. Really cool concept, but the execution was not as well thought out as the concept itself, as the potential of the concept. And sometime after playing Genshin, I started playing Wuthering Waves, and it was a breath of fresh air because Wuthering Waves did correct the gameplay really well compared to Genshin, right? So Genshin strengths and weaknesses: really good open world exploration, really good character continuity, but just poor combat and poor character gameplay in general, right? Wuthering Waves is the total opposite of this, as Wuthering Waves is right now, anyways. It is the total opposite of Genshin on the spectrum, basically. Like, really good character gameplay, really cool combat, but this all comes at the expense of basically open world exploration gameplay, which is barely existent in Wuthering Waves. And this also comes at the expense of character continuity in Wuthering Waves. Wuthering Waves is kind of infamous for shilling for characters that they are currently selling, and then after the end of that character's banner, that character never really shows up again in future narrative sequences, in future quests and cutscenes and whatnot. They have almost zero significance or role. Yeah, so character continuity and open world exploration gameplay, not really that well done in Wuthering Waves. It used to be better. Like, if you look at the older maps like Jinzhou, exploration used to be a focus for the team, but exploration gameplay just kind of died after Renacita, and I figured it's probably because, okay, so one of the more common complaints about Genshin is that due to the exploration oriented focus in Genshin, there is a lot more chest distribution, and as a result it's harder to accumulate primogems to pull for characters and weapons, right? Which is a fair point. And I guess Wuthering Waves wanted to avoid that situation, but so they tried to, avoid that, they tried to correct that, but I guess they were a bit too overzealous and they ended up overcorrecting. So now if you open up any map, any third-party map tool for Wuthering Waves, chest distribution in the open world is incredibly sparse. You can just take a look at maybe Pure Waters, right? It's huge, beautiful, and there's only like 6 or 7 chests. Like, yeah, not so. Yeah, open world gameplay, exploration gameplay in Wuthering Waves is currently not one of its strengths. Even in Mengzhou, I think all the exploration just kind of died after Raguna. They kind of gave up on it, or they kind of, they settled on this new direction, and I'm just not really a fan of it. Yeah, and this is how I will tie into Neverness to Everness, and why I enjoy it so much is because, okay, to summarize, right? Genshin, amazing open world exploration, amazing character continuity, at the expense of very rudimentary character gameplay and combat mechanics. Wuthering Waves, on the other hand, amazing character gameplay, amazing character design, amazing visual effects, sound effects, amazing combat, amazing character gameplay, at the expense of mostly open world exploration gameplay, at the expense of character continuity. Total opposite from Genshin, if you noticed. And this is why I really enjoy Neverness to Everness, is because it's in the it is the perfect midway point between Genshin and Wuthering Waves. It has a degree of exploration in the open world. The open world does reward you for exploring corners and whatnot, for scouring, alleyways, and there are secrets. There's all sorts of secret conversations and dialogues and Easter eggs and stuff that rewards you for exploring, stuff that makes you feel rewarded for exploring. Right. And there's also character continuity in Neverness to Everness. Right. I think one of the more common complaints about Neverness to Everness thus far is that it's been slow. The story has been kind of slow, which is true. But if you just take a look again, there is a concerted effort on behalf of Hota Studios to basically introduce characters to us, flesh out their personalities and their backgrounds and motivations and whatnot, and then keep them around for subsequent narrative sequences. Right, like we were introduced to the A-Bond gang, and they've basically, we're still stuck with them, basically speaking, right? Like all these characters, like Lacrimosa, Chaos, Hotori, Edgar, even Edgar, of 4-star character, they were all introduced to us, and most of these characters are introduced to us either in the main quest or in the side quests, and there is some effort to keep them in subsequent narrative sequences to flesh out their personalities and whatnot. Similar to Genshin, basically, there is some form of character continuity, much more character continuity compared to Wuthering Waves, where they basically dump a character on you and their backstory on you during the banner of that character, and then after that banner, that character never shows up again until like the very end of the arc, maybe post finale or during the finale, right? So yeah, there is character continuity and exploration, open world gameplay in Neverness to Everness. At the same time, combat and character gameplay is not as rudimentary as Genshin, right? The combat is also a midway point between Wuthering Waves and Genshin. It's faster than Genshin, there's more substance than Genshin, but it's slower than Wuthering Waves, and it's not as there's less depth, basically, right? In Wuthering Waves, you would do some attacks to build up forte or to expand forte, to unlock your ability to carry out this special attack. And after carrying out this special attack, you would usually have to build or expand another forte bar, right? To unleash an even more powerful attack, which will then, unlock your capability to unleash like an ultimate attack. That kind of gameplay is pretty prevalent in Wuthering Waves, right? In NTE, in Neverness to Everness, is not as in depth like that. It's simpler, basically, right? Like Chaos. Chaos, you basically swap into him via reaction, like Remora. Use maybe his redirect skill to apply the damage debuff. Then you go to work with his basic attacks and stack up his crime gauge. And when it's maxed out, you can use it. You can expand it for a special heavy attack that deals big damage. And his burst basically is a nuke, and it improves his ability to ramp up his special gauge for more heavy attacks. Basically, that's it, right? There's more substance to it compared to Genshin, but there's less compared to waves. It's in the middle, basically. It's in the middle, right? And that's and everything about Neverness to Everness, it's a middle point between Wuthering Waves and Genshin, which are two games that I really enjoyed, but ultimately left because they overcorrected. They became really skewed towards a particular side of the spectrum, and that's why I enjoy Neverness to Everness so much, because it's in the middle of the spectrum. It does everything well, like pretty well, without overly sacrificing on other aspects of gameplay. You have open world exploration gameplay that is done pretty well, without heavy chest distribution, which would hinder accumulation of annulus. You have a combat that is, done pretty well as well. It's relatively fast paced, but it's not so fast paced to the point where you're constantly trying to fight the camera, where you're constantly dealing with narrow parry windows and whatnot, which may result in some frustration. There is character continuity in this, That's why I really enjoy Neverness to Everness. It's a perfect meet for people who have played Wuthering Waves and Genshin, but are in some parts a little bit disappointed because of how they've neglected certain aspects of gameplay in favor of other aspects of gameplay. Right? Neverness to Everness is perfect. It's perfect. Right? It's the perfect point. They do this aspects of gameplay, all aspects of gameplay, relatively well, without overly sacrificing on other aspects of gameplay. It's all-rounded, basically, right? It's pretty all-rounded, right? I did have some concerns about Neverness to Everness early on. One of my early concerns was character design. There wasn't really a character that really interested me in terms of design. The one that really interested me previously was Hotori, right? But I think it was only recently they released new characters like Shinku and Iroi. These are the characters that the character design really piqued my interest, basically speaking. Another concern I had early on was character animations were a little bit basic. I thought they were a little bit basic. I had some hope because I saw Daffodil's animations, and I saw Sakiri's animations, and I saw Hotori's animations. So I figured it's not really a problem down the line, and that turned out to be true. If you looked at Chaos, Shinku, Iroi, my god, the character animations, the combat animations, the idol animations are so well done. They're so on point. Very well done, very, very well done. So my concerns regarding character animations have kind of evaporated, basically. So those were some of my initial concerns: character design and character animation quality and visual effects and stuff. They weren't really. There was no one that was really wow, this character looks fucking. Okay, sorry. No vulgarities, and it looks like there's no character that looks super amazing, right? That concern has since evaporated with the release of characters like Chaos and Shinku and Iroi, And in the next patch, we are having Zanko and Linko. Linko's character design, we will have to see. She looks interesting. Alright, but Zanko is the one that I'm really looking forward to. But anyways, right, my concerns about character design and character animations have basically evaporated. Right. In particular, I think Eroi. I really enjoy Eroi much more than I expected. More than Shinku actually. Eroi is probably my main character right now. Yeah, I know some people wanted her older design, but I can say I just feel like her new design is so clean. It's so clean, right? And not just that, but her personality and her background, like really dark background. And her animations, god. Okay, those animations are so good for a support character. And I think one of the most interesting, I think Eroi, out of all the anime games that I've played so far, Eroi might be the most unique one because of the whole version of her redirect skill. So if you don't know, if you hold down her E, if you hold down her skill, it replaces every character with her three lamps, right? The sheep basically, right? So basically, you replace the three characters on your team with the equivalent of Furina's elemental skill from Genshin. You basically have like these three pets that scale off of your attack and crit stats and just damage stats, and they deal damage on the field, they attack enemies on the field. So Eroi is kind of like a summoner, basically speaking. And here is the fun part. You can't use any of your allies when the lamps are on the field. They are put into regression mode. You can't use their abilities. You can't swap to your other playable characters while the three lamps are on the field until combat is over. And some people are complaining about it, but do you realize how ingenious it is? By make Because this basically makes Eroi a support character who has a dedicated avenue of becoming a DPS if you want her to, without massively power creeping the team in the process. Because it is balanced out by the fact that you can't use the other characters. And because of that, it has given the developers leeway to actually give Eroi attack scalings that make sense for a DPS. If you notice some of her attacks, like Daydream, Lucid Dream, the attacks of the three lamps, Morpheus, Ikelos, and Phantasos, they hit not super hard, but they hit moderately hard. And then you pair all these attacks, you accumulate all these attacks, plus the blooms from her bloom passive, from Natalie's bloom passive, from Julian's bloom passive, and you have this character, you have these DPS who can essentially self-heal and apply a steady assault on the enemy non-stop. You just notice she's basically Furina. Eroi, with the whole version of a redirect skill, is basically Furina from Genshin Impact on steroids. If Furina from Genshin had a dedicated like DPS mode with Hydro Infusion, that's how good Eroi is. they've managed to make a support character give them the possibility of being a DPS without the risk of massively power creeping that team that the support character turned DPS is on. And Heroic still gets the benefit from the Esper cycle, right? Yeah, it's just that you can't swap to the other three characters, which is, honestly speaking, given the damage from her 3 lamps and from her bloom reactions, blossom reactions, it's a really good trade-off, honestly speaking. Like, I've taken her with Nanalie and Julian and Zero when her arc was at level 70 and her redirect skill was at level 8, her ultimate was at level 8, her basic skill was at level 10, with basically a pretty mediocre speedy hedgehog 4-piece build, and I was able to clear every floor in Beyond the Rails without any of Beyond the Rails like floor buffs whatsoever. Like just clear all of it. And that was before I got my current build, right? I've since rebuilt Iroi with Fireflies and the Forest. I managed to get a gold crit rate cartridge with attack substat, cycle intensity substat, and double crit rate and crit damage substat. And I've also managed to get some other better modules as well. So her damage is like a lot better now. Yeah. It's this freedom, right? NTE's ability, how to say, it's their freedom to experiment. It's going to be one of their strengths, right? If you look at Shinku's interest, Shinku and Iroi are massive steps forward for Neverness to Everness in the right direction when it comes to expanding on character gameplay. Right, Shinku has the same thing as Augusta and Cartothea from Wuthering Waves, where basically there is, when Shinku activates her ultimate, there is a cutscene. And when Shinku's ultimate ends, there is another cutscene, right? She has multiple cutscenes, like Augusta and Cartothea from Wuthering Waves, right? And Iroi being probably, I think she's the only character thus far, a support character who has a very dedicated DPS mode that can turn her into a DPS. But this comes at the expense of certain restrictions which prevent her from basically kind of just power creeping every other DPS team. Really cool, I think, really cool. Like, it's this, how to say, freedom to innovate and experiment on the part of Hotta Studios that I think it really speaks volumes to how excited I am to see what Zanko and Linko are capable of and what future character gameplay can possibly be, right? By the way, this is what I was talking about, one of the character encounters. These things are fun. These things are so fun to come across, like so fun. Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy Neverness to Everness because it's a good midway point, the perfect midway point between Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves. And they're also, experimenting with some really fun stuff. They seem to have a very clear vision on what makes a living, breathing, lived in open world, right? With exploration and respectable combat, you know, nothing super amazing, but really enjoyable combat, really cool character animations. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about the reactions in the reaction system in Everness to Everness. It's done really well as well, surprisingly. So there is an intro outro system in NTE like Wuthering Waves, right? And they've basically tied the reaction system to that intro outro system. So your reaction is created a reaction is created when you outro from a character from an element and intro to a character from another element, and it creates a reaction. So the reaction is tied to the intro outro system. And another thing that they've done really well is that the damage of the reaction automatically scales from the character that has the higher reaction scaling stat. So in this game, in Genshin it was Elemental Mastery. In this game it's called Cycle Intensity. So a reaction that's created will automatically scale off of the higher cycle intensity between the two characters. So what this means is you can build cycle intensity on your support character, and you can build the usual crit rate and crit damage stats on your DPS character. And when you create a reaction, the reaction scales off of your support character's cycle intensity, because support character has higher cycle intensity as you build that character. Yeah, yeah. So really nice. You no longer have to choose between building a character's personal damage or building up reaction damage, as opposed to in Genshin where you're just kind of, you're mostly omitting reaction damage in favor of personal character damage, unless the character is a character that explicitly has EM scalings or some sort of passive that improves reaction damage in their kit, right? It's more streamlined in Neverness to Everness. You have 100% control over reaction damage and how to trigger reactions, who is the one triggering reactions, and so on and so forth. Very well done. I'm very happy with how they've done the reaction system actually. Yeah, and yeah, you can see this is one of my homes or bases in the open world, and it's not a loading screen or an instance area either. It's part of the open world itself. It's seamless basically. I can just jump out the window from the skyscraper and glide down into the open world onto the street. Very cool, very cool. Yeah, this game does so many improvements in so many different gameplay mechanics over Genshin and Wuthering Waves, right? And they do it because they think it's fun. They do it because it's their vision of what an open world should be, and I heavily resonate with that vision with their vision of what an open world anime game should be. It should have great combat. It should have great character gameplay. It should have great exploration gameplay in the open world. Otherwise, what's the point of, even making said open world? It should have character continuity. It should have an extensive interaction system with playable characters. right? An extensive interaction and encounter system with playable characters to create the illusion of a lived-in world. Not just that, actually, you can actually encounter NPCs as well. Like I have encountered important NPCs from side quests in certain areas of the city at certain times of the day. So it's not just playable characters, it's also NPCs. Very, very, very cool. Yeah, and like, I'm not even gonna talk about the gacha system. I haven't even talked about the gacha system, right? Um, it has the same max PD as Genshin. It has the same max weapon PD as Wuthering Waves. It has no character 50-50. It has no weapon 50-50. You get 10 free pulls every patch for the limited character banner. You get 20 free weapon pools at the start of each patch from the Hunters Exchange. Oh my god, like, and each pool costs the same amount of currency as Wuthering Waves and, Genshin, 160 for one pool, right? And not just that, for every bundle, sorry, not every bundle, every new banner, there will be a new value bundle where they basically sell 10 character pools and 10 weapon pools at a heavily discounted rate. Value bundles basically. So amazing gacha system, like amazing gacha system, right? The gacha system is not the main reason why I enjoy this game, but because of how it works, I find that I'm not stressing out about pool currency. I find that I'm not stressing about my financial means or my ability to spend in this game. Because everything is more affordable. Money is not really in the back of my mind when I play this game compared to Genshin, compared to Wuthering Waves, right? I really enjoy the gameplay so much, and now because of how they've basically subsidized, I guess, the gacha system, like it's more generous, I don't even have to really worry about pulling for characters or I don't have to worry about my inability to pull for characters and weapons. I am a spender, definitely, right? I am a spender, definitely. But I don't really have to worry about overspending whatsoever, right? And I think this might be a good time to end the video here.